This is the story of a company that literally invented the future, then spent 3 decades trying to stop it from happening. Kodak didn't just fail to adapt to digital photography. They created it, saw its potential, and deliberately chose to ignore it. In 1975, a young engineer named Steve Sasson at Kodak built something revolutionary. It was the world's first self-contained digital camera. It weighed 8 pounds, captured a blurry 0.01 megapixel image, and took a staggering 23 seconds to record a single photo to a cassette tape. Sasson presented his invention to Kodak's leadership. Their reaction, according to later accounts, was chilling. "That's cute, but don't tell anyone about it." They saw the digital camera not as an opportunity, but as an existential threat to their core business. And that core business was staggeringly profitable. At its peak in the late 1990s, Kodak's profit margins on film and the chemicals used to develop it were over 70%. This was the golden goose, and digital photography looked like a predator. For Kodak, film wasn't just a product. It was the entire ecosystem. In 2020, film sales still accounted for approximately 70% of the company's total revenue. The fortress seemed impenetrable. Instead of pivoting, Kodak doubled down on analog. In a fateful 1988 decision, they spent $5.1 billion to acquire Sterling Drug, a pharmaceutical company. The goal was to control the chemical manufacturing process for film, locking them deeper into an analog mindset. Meanwhile, the digital world Kodak had helped pioneer was exploding. They were not passive, though. By the early 2000s, Kodak held over 1,000 critical patents on digital imaging sensors and processes. They were sitting on a gold mine, but refused to mine it. The decline, when it came, was swift and brutal. Look at this chart. In 2020, film was 70% of revenue. Just 5 years later, it had plummeted to just 35%. The digital flood Kodak tried to hold back was already inside the gates. Kodak did eventually chase digital. In 2005, digital products actually surpassed film to become their largest revenue source. Total revenue peaked at $13.27 billion. But here was the fatal problem. The digital business wasn't profitable. They were losing money on every camera they sold. The profit engine was sputtering out. Their legacy film business was melting away, while their new digital venture was a money pit. Total revenue began a steep, irreversible slide. From nearly $14 billion in 2020, it crashed to under $4 billion by 2011. The human cost was immense. A company that once employed over 145,000 people at its peak in 1988 was a shell of itself. By the time of its bankruptcy filing, the workforce had been slashed to just 17,000. A city of workers, erased. As the end neared, Kodak tried to liquidate its last major asset, the patent portfolio. Analysts had once valued those digital imaging patents at over $2 billion. In a sign of just how desperate things had become, they were sold for a fraction of that. In 2008, the portfolio was sold to a consortium led by Apple and others for just $525 million. A treasure trove of the future, sold for scrap. This sale marked the final admission that Kodak could not monetize the very technology it had pioneered. The final blow came in January 2012. Eastman Kodak, a company whose brand was once ranked the 14th most valuable in the world, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. They listed $5.1 billion in assets against a staggering $6.75 billion in debt. But what makes this story truly tragic is the comparison. Fujifilm, Kodak's main rival, faced the exact same digital threat. Their response? They diversified aggressively into pharmaceuticals, cosmetics, and advanced materials. They didn't cling to the past. While Kodak's revenue cratered, Fujifilm's grew. By 2005, Fujifilm's total revenue had already surpassed Kodak's. By 2010, the gap was a chasm. Fujifilm had successfully transformed itself, while Kodak was still trying to sell film in a digital world. The results spoke for themselves. In 2011, as Kodak bled cash and prepared for bankruptcy, Fujifilm posted a healthy operating profit margin of 6.4%. One company embraced change, the other was destroyed by it. The divergence wasn't accidental. It came down to a fundamental choice. Kodak saw digital as a threat to be managed and contained. Fujifilm saw it as a transformation to be led. Kodak fought the future. Fujifilm built the future. Kodak's leaders were prisoners of their own success. The 70% profit margins on film were too juicy to abandon. The sterling drug acquisition showed they were trying to perfect the old model, not invent a new one. This is the innovator's dilemma in its purest, most painful form. Even when they had the technology, the talent, and over 1,000 patents, they couldn't pull the trigger. They held the blueprint for the digital age, but were too afraid of cannibalizing their own cash cow to build anything with it. The Kodak brand, once a symbol of capturing memories, became a symbol of corporate failure. A brand worth over $13 billion in 1996 could not survive a leadership team that chose protection over innovation. Again and again. The lesson is brutally clear. Market dominance means nothing if you are unwilling to disrupt yourself. The future does not wait for permission, and it certainly doesn't care about your profit margins. Kodak's fall wasn't caused by a lack of innovation. It was caused by a lack of courage. They had the spark in their hands in 1975 and chose to extinguish it. So the next time a company tells you it's too risky to change, remember Kodak. The most dangerous position in business isn't failing to innovate. It's knowing exactly what you need to do and choosing not to do it. If this story of corporate tragedy taught you something, hit that subscribe button. We break down the biggest business failures and strategic turns in history so you don't have to repeat them.